Hello everybody and welcome back to another Gaming Triax video. And as you can see, today I am playing a little bit more TF2. I'm playing as the Pyro and we're playing some MVM. But as you may have guessed from the title, that is not what we're going to be talking about today. What I want to talk about is, an interesting topic that I've been thinking about is how much sleep the people actually need in order to function properly and to really work effectively and things like that. Because as most of you probably know, I'm a high school student, and that means I don't always get the most sleep all the time, and I don't necessarily always get enough sleep all the time. But one thing that I find interesting is I always wonder what is enough time and how does it differ between different people. So why would one person need less sleep than another person? And this is something that I haven't really answered yet. So if any of you guys have any insight into that, I would love to read it in comment below. So just leave that down there. But anyway, but I've been doing some research on this because I'm really curious to learn about this. And I suppose most of you have probably heard that people need teenagers specifically need 9 to 10 hours of sleep. And I think this really is unrealistic, and most of us probably don't get that much sleep. I know I don't get close to that much sleep anymore. So, how much do we really need? I mean, I know people who sleep maybe 5 hours a day, and some of them sometimes even less, which is pretty ridiculous, and yet they still manage to work fine, which really amazes me, because if I were doing everything off 5 hours of sleep a day, I would be exhausted. And so I've been thinking, I estimate I probably get about 7.5 hours of sleep a night, and I know that I am pretty tired at the end of the day. So I don't know. I mean, I understand that it's dependent on the amount that you need and the amount that you're growing and stuff, but to what extent is it dependent on that? Because I really think that you can also try to train yourself to maybe need less sleep, and this is sort of an interesting concept that I've been thinking about, which is whether it is possible to make yourself need less sleep by just practicing and sleeping less. And I think it's a really interesting concept, and there's actually one of my friends I was talking to about this a lot, and he says that apparently you can train yourself to need less sleep, and I thought it was a really good idea, and I'm really wondering if it works. I was wondering. So I kind of tried that out, and I think to a certain extent it does work, because really, if you sleep a lot every day, I think that's how much sleep you're going to need, and that's how much sleep you're going to start to want all the time. But it's not necessarily what's good for you, because for example, especially if you optimize your lifestyle so that you don't need as much sleep, I think it's very easy to survive with much less sleep. So for example, one thing that I've learned is, I've learned it, but I've tested it too. And one thing that I found out is that drinking water is actually a major component in how much sleep you need, and it helps you feel much less tired and fatigued in general throughout the day, and also late at night too. And the reasoning behind this is that if you drink water, then it will dilute your blood so that it's much thinner, and then your heart doesn't have to pump as hard. Now, naturally, that's a simplified explanation, but I think it makes a lot of sense that you wouldn't necessarily need to do as much work. If you have thinner blood, it's easier to pump. And then if you're saving energy, naturally, you're not going to necessarily need as much sleep. And I've definitely found that I think that actually does work. And I don't know, leave a comment if you agree with that. Another thing that I've been reading about is apparently a lot of people say that the best thing to do is maintain a consistent sleep schedule, which would mean going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. And especially on weekends, a lot of people say it's important that you don't sleep in on weekends a lot, because that messes up your sleep schedule and you start to adapt to having more sleep. But then after 2 days you go back to a regular weekday, and you're only going to get 7 hours of sleep instead of maybe 10. So that's not necessarily good for you. So what would be better apparently is to wake up at the same time every day but go to bed when you feel tired. And this is something that I found I think works better than trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time every single day, because that's really never just that effective for me. Because I mean, it's a lot of times you end up going to sleep but you don't actually sleep because you're not tired, so half the time it's not useful. So what makes a lot more sense is to go to bed when you're actually tired, and assuming that you wake up the same time every day, your body will know when you're going to wake up. You'll be in that schedule, so you'll naturally be tired, and that'll sort of dictate, I don't know, I don't really know how to explain it, but you'll be tired dependent on when you're waking up and what you do during your day. So assuming you are not running a marathon one day after doing absolutely nothing for the past 10 years of your life, you should be relatively fine, assuming that you maintain the sleep schedule. And I found through experience that this works pretty well. And I don't know, I know a lot of my audience is probably on the younger side, probably around my age. So leave a comment below and tell me what you think of this, because I think it's a really interesting concept. And also, do you think that it's possible to need less sleep and to make yourself need less sleep? Because there are a lot of things that people say online, and it's hard to say without testing them yourself, because a lot of people say, well, maybe apparently eating raw foods can actually make a significant difference, which really surprises me, but I suppose it makes sense if you're eating simpler things, so simpler forms of energy essentially, because whenever you eat something, your body's just going to break it up anyway into energy. So if you're eating simpler things as opposed to something, say, complex carbohydrates, it stands to reason that you would save energy by doing that. Yeah, so it makes sense, I suppose. I don't know if you would actually be able to feel a difference, and if any of you guys have ever thought about this or tried it or something, I know it may seem very random, but I think it is sort of an interesting concept just to ponder, and maybe there is a more efficient way to do things. Because another thing I read about was something called a polyphasic sleep cycle, which is essentially, rather than sleeping once a day, would be sleeping up to 4 times a day, except in much smaller segments. And essentially the theory is that way you still get approximately the same amount of REM sleep, because rather than wasting time before you enter that rapid eye movement sleep cycle, you'll actually just, when you sleep normally, you generally spend only about, I think it's a quarter of your time in REM sleep, and the rest of it is, the theory is, the rest of it is wasted. Yet, I'm not sure if this is true, but, I mean, it's an interesting concept. So anyway, guys, if you are interested in this, please leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And I hope to see you in our next video. Goodbye.